everybody ready to go? All right. It's 7:02 on Monday, September 9th, the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Town of Winchester. Roll call, I'm George Clausen, Chair, Peter Marchand is the Vice Chair, John Cooney, Craig Sandin is absent excused, Willie Platt. Charlene Lavoy is an alternate, she's absent excused, Adam's here, and Rista Malaka is here as an alternate. Adam, I'm gonna seat you in Craig's position tonight. So, we don't have any more public, any comments from,
Just need to seat somebody first.
I just did.
Oh, okay.
Agenda review, I don't think we've got anything. Anybody have any suggestions or comments? We don't have a public hearing, so number 5 is new business, PZC 24-10, site plan application, applicant owner, Michael Windsor, Horsepower Hill LLC, D&M Auto Works Sales and Service, location 15 Coe Street, zoning district Town Gateway. Proposal completely fenced in and secure lot to be utilized for employee and tow truck flatbed parking. So this isn't a public hearing, so it's just a site plan approval. I've got the application and the map. It's a current map. The only thing shown on it is a chain link fence and a wood stock fee. How tall is if you introduce yourself and present?
I'm Donnie Trevlin, I'm with D&M Auto Works,
Yeah.
and obviously part owner of that land.
How high is this wood
Should we have him
stock
come up to the
gate?
microphone?
Don, do you mind sitting over here just so I can hear you?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just so they can hear you.
Just give yourself an introduction.
Yeah,
here.
again, Donnie Trevlin, owner of D&M Auto Works, sales and service, part owner of the land. How high is the fence?
The stockade fence.
The wooden fence along the back is gonna be, I believe, 10 to 14 feet high.
What's our limitation?
It just needs a building permit.
Sorry?
Building permit over 7 feet, but there's no limitation.
Oh, okay.
And the chain link is gonna be what, 6? 6 feet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a 6-foot chain link.
With the slats in it,
Yeah. With
so you
privacy,
can't,
yeah.
so privacy, yep.
And how big is the gate gonna be that you didn't, it shows that there's a gate, but it doesn't define it.
I believe on the 182 side, it is 20, and on the 44 side, I think it's gonna be, I believe 30.
So 20 on the,
183 side, yep, or Coast Heritage side, yep.
the other one is what,
30?
30,
30 feet?
yep.
So nothing else is planned on there, just the existing asphalt and everything that
The
you're doing?
existing asphalt's staying, that's staying, and just
Okay.
adding a fence, and that's about it.
So no signage, no, nothing?
No dumpster, no signage, no nothing.
And you're 2 feet off the property line, the fence will be located up at the, where the residence is,
Yeah.
James.
Yep.
All right. Pretty straightforward. Commissioners, any questions?
That's all my questions.
Lighting? Any lighting?
Nope.
Anything?
I recall it was gonna be used for employee parking?
We have 4 employees, and D&M's only so big, so they all walk over and get their coffee, so we're gonna make the employees park there, get their coffees, walk to work. And to free up a couple more spots at the shop, we're gonna we'll most likely be parking our flatbed there,
Okay.
just to free up more parking on the corner.
And then your hours of operation of the other, of your main?
Same as DNM, Monday 8 to 5, Thursday 8 to 7, Friday 8 to 5, and Saturday 8 to noon.
And then the encroached shed, that's your neighbor's shed, that's encroaching on yours?
Yep.
Okay.
Will there be any vehicles left there for any extended period of time?
There'll be no dismantling of vehicles, there'll be no working on vehicles over there, there'll be no dumpster over there. There'll be, everything there that will be on that property is gonna be registered and insured. So, to answer your question, no.
Okay.
This is a piece that was, when Hudson Wire was there, I was involved when that was taken down in the seventies, and that was their, they had parking over there because their office was right across the street in that complex.
Yeah.
There's been a parking lot
Employee
forever.
parking lot.
Yeah. So, any other questions or comments?
I just had one that I just thought of.
Mhm.
You had two proposed gates.
Yep.
So one's gonna be coming in off of 44.
Yep.
Does that need a driveway cut or anything from the state?
Well, there's,
Because
is it gonna
already
be at
there.
the same
It's already
place it
there?
was?
Both driveways were pre-existing.
Pre-existing.
So which one's,
Original parking lot.
are your employees gonna be using one or the others?
Most
Predominantly?
likely the 44 gate.
44, okay.
Yep, just because it's easier and there's, more room to get off the road, open the gate and go in.
Okay, makes great sense.
Yep, and I think it's 25 feet or something, the gate setback, so you
Yeah,
can
it's set
pull
back
up
quite a ways
and
from the road.
not hinder any sight lines or any of
Yeah.
that.
Okay. All right. Any
That's all
other?
I have, George.
Okay. Anything? Okay. All right, I guess that's, the end of the conversation. Well, it's a pretty simple application. Appreciate you, getting involved with it. Hasn't been used in a lot of time.
Well, when we purchased the land, I don't know if you guys were up that way, but there was 8 six-wheeler loads of pure garbage
Mhm.
that got hauled out of there that, to the tune of $2,500. So it cost quite a bit of money to clean up that, and just so the board knows, there's a guy that goes in there once a month. We have him weed whacking that whole corner, keeping it up, and as you know, George, how we run D&M, it's
Yeah,
nice,
no, I think
neat,
you've done a nice
clean
job.
No, it looks
operation.
100% better than what
If
it
it's
did.
something that we're gonna get involved in, we're gonna do it the right way.
Well, you've done a nice job up there. That's good, I'm glad you got it. And, it'd be nice to see it being utilized.
It actually, as you know too, George, it was actually part of our building. As you know, it was part of Hallmark Chevrolet, and
When
it,
they first bought it.
and they had, 200 brand-new cars on that lot at one time to cycle into the dealership. When we bought the building, we just couldn't afford that at the time, so that's why it just was on the back burner till we could afford it.
Yeah, when they bought that Hudson Wire property, they actually had a plan to put the dealership
They did.
where the old
They did.
factory was.
The only reason why for the fence is because I just don't wanna go through people dumping garbage on it again and have that bill again and have the town, I mean, it's the first thing that I feel like you see when you come down into Winston
It is.
from Norfolk, and I'm not gonna have the town looking like,
Good.
you
Well, I
know,
appreciate
garbage.
it.
So, that's the reason for the fence, and I just don't feel like why I switched it from wood to, you know, or why we're doing the wood is just to give the neighbors privacy.
Something different, yeah.
Yep, and
Good.
respect them, so.
Okay. I think we've got all our answers.
We're gonna wait and take action on this in under old business, I
Yeah,
said.
we'll do it
Okay.
under old business, so we'll make a decision tonight, just we got a little discussion here after
Okay,
your application, and then
okay.
take that up.
How will I know how everything went?
I can let you know, Don.
Oh,
You
okay,
don't-
you're-
You don't have to
okay.
stay if you
Or
don't.
do you wanna just amend the agenda to vote on that now so he can,
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to bring old business PZC 2410 up to new business.
You have a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Any comment? All in favor? Okay, here's a draft.
Make a motion to approve application 2410, special permit owner applicant, Michael Windsor, Horsepower Hill LLC, DM on M Auto Works Sales and Service, location 15 Cove Street. Proposal completely fenced in and secure lot to be utilized for employee and tow truck flatbed parking. One, in evaluating this application, the Planning and Zoning Commission has relied upon information provided by the applicant, and if such information subsequently proves to be false, deceptive, incomplete, and or inaccurate, this permit shall be modified, suspended, or revoked. Two, this application is consistent with the town's plan of conservation and development. Three, this application meets the criteria and standards of 3J common regulations, special permits, and special exceptions.
Second?
John, second. Discussion of the motion? All in favor? Okay,
Is that,
Thank you.
thank you, appreciate it.
Everybody.
thank you.
Thanks for taking care of that. There's a file on it too, when you send that down. Okay, the next, under new business is item B, Zach Dumont, is that you? New England Account Manager from General Code, discussion for addition of the 5 new zoning regulations adopted by the board members to be incorporated into the new 2024 zoning regulations, and discussion of the E-code addition to these regulations onto the Town of Winchester Code Ordinances and Regulations website. Okay, so you want to tell us what you have in mind here?
Good evening. My name is Zachary Dumont. I work for General Code. Two things about me. If I talk too long and you have a question, please butt in, because I'd rather hear other people talking instead of just myself. And then secondly, I am partially deaf, so please feel free to speak loudly at me. As I told my wife, just yell, because odds are I'm not going to hear you well anyway. So, little bit about General Code. We're a municipal codification company. That means we take local ordinances and, in the state of Connecticut, regulations, and we bring them together into a single municipal code volume. And the best thing that I can point to is your town's code as it exists today. If you've ever looked at your ordinances from April 2023 and forward, that was the work of General Code, their editorial staff, and representatives from the town of Winchester to cobble together a great many individual documents into one succinct code volume. When the project first kicked off, the zoning regulations were treated just like the ordinances. We created a new structure, new numbering, a new look, format, and feel that was consistent across everything. And the zoning regulations were titled Chapter 415. At some point between 2022, September thereabouts, to about 2023, a decision was made within the town to bifurcate the project and move forward with getting the ordinances and everything else online and having the regulations take a backseat for the time being. I was not with General Code at the time, so I can't tell you exactly what the reasons were on the side of the planning board or the side of the town. I can only tell you from what General Code has told me, my editors, was that there was some hesitation, some uncertainty, which is not uncommon when it comes to zoning, because it is a very critical piece of town infrastructure, and some folks are shaky whenever you discuss changing, which I totally get. Because I live in a city where there's zoning, and people freak out anytime they want to change the zoning, whether it's to be more permissive or less permissive, it's always a question. But ideally, this project has been sitting out there for a few months now. We had new staff members come on with the town. We'd like to see the project completed. I know Lance and his staff like to see the project completed, so I'm hoping that together we can find a way to move forward to get that Chapter 415 online, integrated into the code book, so it's online, it's searchable, and it's easy to keep track of when things change. How am I doing so far? Any questions?
Well, what, got the code on the town website, so what's going to change?
I'm sorry.
We have the code our regulations is
Yeah.
on the town website, so why, what is it gonna change?
So what you have is a PDF online. PDFs are accessible to a point. We all understand how to open a PDF. If you want to search something, though, it can be incredibly time consuming. You also get a very literal form of search. What I mean by that is if you open up your regulations and you hit Control F to open up the little window finder, you look for the word Apple. When you type the letter A, it's going to pull up 9,000 instances for the letter A. Then it's going to pull up 7,000 instances for AP, and then APP, and so on all the way down until you actually get to Apple. Then you're going to have to go through each individual page and every single instance on that page where that phrase is. So we'll say with regulations, license probably is a word that comes up frequently, or fee. You might have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 different instances that are not in the context of what you might be searching for. With eCode, we use stem searching as well as keyword searching. So when you search for the term license, you're going to see license, licenses, licensing, and any other iteration of the word license. What you're also going to see is the context in which you're searching for that term. So it'll highlight in the code section how license might be defined or how it's supposed to be regulated or implemented. You're going to get a much more smarter search. It's probably the best way to describe it. It's going to refine your searching process, your sorting process, to actually figure out the information you need, instead of saying, oh, I think it's on page 92 in a 145-page document, and then it's not there, and you have to look 10 pages before and 10 pages after. Another really nifty way is for your planning and zoning staff, when it comes to actually enforcing parts of your regulations, you're going to have somebody who says, where does it say? And he's going to be able to pull up an email with a link exactly to that section in the exact form and format of the whole code. No copy paste, no transcribing from one document to another, or no, screenshots of a PDF saying, here it is, go figure it out for yourself. Those are just a couple of the ways that we see.
So how do we implement this from our standpoint?
Yes, so there are a couple of questions, I guess, that we would want to consider. So what we gave you to move forward and adopt was a final draft that the town had reviewed and said, hey, we're happy with this, we want to go ahead and move forward. The previous town, I believe it was the town manager, Josh, had said, yeah, go ahead with this next phase of the project. That draft that we gave you is probably out of date because it's from 2022, 2023. So I would recommend anything that's new language we want to see. We want to incorporate that new language into that draft. We'd give the draft back to you, and you guys would say, yep, we like it, or can you change this and this real quick? And then we'd have you adopt the code, and then we can get it online. And if you have code books, I believe we'll also be sending like the paper inserts for the formal code book.
How do we, our codes, which is, Lance just gave this to us a couple weeks ago. So how does this new thing that you're talking about, how does it look compared to this?
It's going to look a lot different. The biggest thing that you're going to see is the numbering. So what we do when we build codes is we're going to take all like-minded legislation. We'll just use animals as an example. You might have 10, 20, 30 different pages of regulations just on dogs. You might have 10, 20, 30 pages regulations just on fowl, geese, birds, whatever, or even just livestock in general, right? Instead of having different pages or different PDFs cobbled together in one large PDF, you're going to see chapters, sections, and subsections broken down with that like-minded legislation in their relevant sections. You're going to see the definitions in a similar format, a consistent format at the top of the chapter, at the top of the section where those definitions apply. So the whole look, format, and feel is going to be completely different, and it will take a couple days getting used to it until you start, using it again. There were a couple minor substantive changes that the town had initially approved of, so we could go ahead with doing the draft. But a lot of what we found was mostly just grammatical and structural problems. So one really silly one that popped up, throughout some of your paragraphs, you'll write out the number 4, F-O-U-R. In that same paragraph, it'll say 4 parentheses, the number 4. Other times, it'll just be the number, no parentheses, but then 30 seconds later in that same sentence, it's again, broken down where it's spelled out and in parentheses. So it's just inconsistent stylization.
Okay, so like, for instance, we got a table of contents. Is that gonna have a table of contents as well?
Yes, it'll have an updated table of contents.
So how would you search to look up something? We got something in a rural zone.
Yep.
How would you search for that then?
So you can either search the whole code and it'll pull up the relevant sections, and then within the relevant sections, you can then further refine down on the left-hand side to give you like 5 or 6 different filter options to work through. Or you can actually go just to that chapter itself, look at the individual section, and there'll be little boxes to the left-hand side. Yeah.
I wanna let you finish, but
All right,
I wanna raise my hand just in
There'll be like a little box on the left-hand side. You can check that little box, and you'll see up at the top of the code, you're now only searching that individual section for whatever your term is. Additionally, one of the things that I love is we have an index that is very responsive. So on the left-hand side of every eCode 360 site, that's the code platform, eCode 360, there's a black rail, and it's a bunch of menu buttons. And if you click on the little code book button, it'll pop up the opportunity to look at the index. That keyword index, you can go to any word in your code, hit the little arrow, and it'll tell you every single instance and where it appears within the code. So we talked about dogs earlier, we talked about licenses, we talked about fees. Every single one of those terms is there. So when you click that little drop down, you might see 2 references, you might see 400 references, but all of the relevant sections of the code that are hit by that word are gonna pop up there.
So, before you answer, Adam, it would seem to me, any changes that we'd make, we'd have to have a public hearing and have a publication of what it looks like so that we could have people comment. So,
Yeah,
that,
there are a couple ways to handle updates.
well, first of all, to approve the modification of
Oh,
our
yeah,
plans, we have to have a public hearing to be able to present what is being presented and let people comment, discuss it, and so
Yes.
forth. Okay.
yeah, so you would have, just like you would with any other adoption of any regulation change, or you could bring in whole new regulations, very similar process. We can get you an updated draft, we can give you a brief description of all the changes that were made within that draft, and then it would roll your hearing.
Can that be presented on the screens?
Yes.
Okay. Adam, why don't you,
Yeah, I was gonna say too, if you showed us too, it'd be, I've looked at other code from towns and I've seen it electronically organized like this too, and it's a very good, useful tool, effective tool, right? And it presents itself less like a book, more like a tool, referring tool, right? And then you have electronic links
Yes.
too, so like it refers to a section, you can electronic link that section within the document.
Yeah, so so right now, you would say to somebody, hey, I want to share our zoning regulations. You're going to send them one super long hyperlink to a, 192-page zoning regulation document. Every instance of an eCode page has a unique web identifier, so if you only want to send that one section, you're only sending that one section.
I see.
If you want to send a whole chapter, you're sending that whole chapter. But you, as the end user, have the ability to determine how much content you want to send.
okay, so now we make a modification because that frequently happens.
Yeah.
So we go through that whole process, we'd have to have the draft, so you would do the draft?
Typically what we do after a code has been published, you would continue with your normal process. You'd say, hey, we want to revise, in this case, chapter 415, subsection 12, A30. So you have a Word copy of that chapter of your regulations, that section of your regulations. You do your red line text, you present it here, everybody votes in favor, huzzah. You send general code an email, we'll get it online to a special section of your eCode page called New Laws. That way there, everybody knows a new law has been adopted. At the top of the chapter, 415, there will be a PDF copy. And then within the section that it applies, there will also be a link there to the PDF. Then when the town says, hey, can you fully incorporate it into the code book, we'll do the editorial work to get it in. If you have paper books, we'll send you 1 page or 30 pages, however big that update is, and your clerk usually is the one that'll update those books. Or if Lance has a code book, he update his. Towns are a little bit different in terms of how frequently they want to update their code book. I have some small towns, especially like out in Western Mass, where there's 300 people but 10,000 cows. They do 1 update a year, usually after an annual town meeting, and then once that town meeting has happened, we'll update 10 or 12 different
So how costly is that process?
I'd have to check, I believe in your case, you guys would have a per-page rate, because you're still within 3 years from when we initially published. In most communities, though, when we talk about the entire code updates, less than $2,000 a year for updates, that's conservation, stuff that the clerk would do, stuff that the town manager might do, or town council might do. It breaks down usually to about $30 a page at most, give or take. Some years you will find towns are very legislatively active, so we might do $5,000 worth of updates, but that's because they repealed and replaced 500 pages worth of their code book. Other towns are gonna change one paragraph once a year, and we just send them the bill for it.
Where are you located?
I personally am located in Rochester, New Hampshire. The company is based in Rochester, New York. Totally confusing, I get it. But I am in Connecticut at least every 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm a very local individual. I do a lot of travel in Connecticut.
How many companies do this?
2. There's us, there's American Legal Publishing, they're a Midwestern company. MuniCode used to do it, they're an individual, standalone private company. They got absorbed into Civic Plus a number of years ago, and it doesn't seem like codification's really at the forte anymore, so it's really just us and American Legal. The benefit of General Code, though, is we're actually a subsidiary company of the International Code Council. As your planning and zoning staff would tell you, ICC sets the national regulations, building code, residential code, mechanical code, whatever. So we have code experience from the local municipal level, but then also from that national footprint level. So kind of everything now. I think we saw a question.
Yep, I have a few questions or comments. So I think, I would rely on staff to make sure that not only can the town afford to do this, but is going to continue to maintain the updates, because one of the biggest problems we have is making changes and not having the biggest updates. So I would want to make sure that there's some confirmation that we have the funds to make sure that our regulations are continually updated, whether, that's kind of their job to pick the company. So I'm good with that. I've seen E-code. I think it works great. Are you looking at just zoning regulations or subdivision and wetlands regulations too, or?
Wetlands have already been added.
Added?
I think really the zoning regulation's the only thing left.
And subdivisions
Subdivision is already included?
I don't know, do you
Let me
remember offhand?
double check.
And then I did this might not be appropriate for this discussion, but this is where you sent that table of uses? Is that what you sent? You sent a new table of uses?
There was an updated table of use that I believe Claudia, our editor, had put together when she did the initial organizational structure of the code. And then later on, when she did an analysis of the code, if there were inconsistencies or problems, she would have highlighted them there. We got back just an affirmative from the town that said, hey, looks good, here are our responses, go ahead and move forward. But as I said earlier, if you have updated changes or new regulations that are different, have Lance send them to me, and we can go through to make sure that the current regulations will be current once they're on E-code. We
Okay.
want to make sure we only publish current information that you actually want to enforce.
Yep, and, so some of the things you had mentioned about the definitions, I've worked on many regulations and worked hard to take them out of chapter by chapter. So there's only one section of definitions, not spread out, because people then don't know where to find them. So I think that's really important. I think the table of uses is a great addition, but should not be an appendix. It needs to be in the regulations. And there's some conversation that I think we should have here if we're moving to that model, because there's so many different permit types that are not addressed in our current regulations. So I guess my question is, once you kind of put this all together, what is that process for us to then look at it and say, these are the changes you want to make? How many iterations will you do for us in that? What does that process look like?
In most projects, there are 2 iterations, sort of 3 iterations of the town sees. There's the initial organizational structure, we call it the organizational analysis. That's when we put everything together in terms of chapters, sections, subsection, and then the relevant numbering. Then, once the town has approved that, we go on to build your preliminary draft, and that's typically where you'll see all of the substantive language spelled out, and that is an opportunity for the town to comment, critique, whatever it might be, where we fine townsfolk and they adopt it, or you adopt it, right? Easy peasy. In this case, because we're a little bit fragmented on the project, I would say at the bare minimum, you would see another draft entirely that has the current language updated. And then I would assume Claudia is amenable to doing a secondary draft if there were large, problems or concerns, whatever they might be. However, I would say that between town staff and my editorial staff, as long as there's an open line of communication about concerns at this level, we can reflect the proper edits and comments on our level so that you don't have to go through 3, 4, 5 drafts. Because we're 4 years into a project, and I get it, COVID happened, everything got stunted. We are incentivized to actually give you a working version of your regulations as soon as you're happy with them.
And do you send that to us in a Word document so we can make red line changes, or how does that?
I believe traditionally we send it over in a responsive PDF where you can like checkbox or put in comments below and save it onto the PDF itself. But we can give Word copies if you need. We can produce XML. We try to be flexible. The cool part with eCode 360 is once it's actually published and online, we can give you logins so you can grab Word copies of the regulations or even PDF copies. So it's much easier to amend and edit and draft new stuff from there instead of just copy paste over.
So we have our own ability to edit.
Yeah,
Right.
so you'll be able to take the content down, make your updates, and then bring them here for them to be adopted at public hearing. When it comes to making public-facing changes in the actual code itself, is one of like 5 editors at General Code who will actually push updates out to the public. So what happens is you guys approve regulation changes here at this local level, you send them to me, my editors codify everything in, and then usually Denise hits the green button so they go out to the public.
So we have to use you to publish it.
It's part of working with a codifier. The reason why we recommend communities work with codifiers is, how long have you been on this board, like individually? Probably not for the last 60 years, right? Although I've seen some towns where people are there forever. Most people are on boards, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. After that, they leave. They take that institutional knowledge with them. General Code, because we have editors that work with us, so in depth for such a long period of time, we can ensure that there is a level of consistency and proper formatting throughout any iteration of your town government. Whether it's this board or your town clerk or your town admin or town council, whatever it is, our editors will make sure that that style is consistent. But as a part of doing their updates too, they're going to look and say, hey, you guys reference chapter or subsection C through D. It actually isn't. It's D through E. Would you like us to make that update? There was a mistake here. So we'll look out for items like that. It is very common that we find 1 or 2 items during the course of updates, or stuff didn't get referenced properly on the town's end, where our editors can go in and correct it for you. We can communicate with the town and say, hey, we noticed XYZ Scrivener error. Would you like us to address them, or bring them in verbatim.
How long does that take from the time we send it to you to make it?
Depends on how quickly you'd like us to do the update. Some towns are set up so that if you send us something on January 1st, we'll start working on it on January 2nd. Other towns, you send it to us on January 1st and they say, hey, we want to do one update in April, so in April we'll tell you when to go ahead. With every community, we typically have a minimum 1-year check-in where we'll reach out to the clerk or the planning director and say, hey, you haven't done an update in X number of months, would you like to get these items updated?
So even so we do quite a few changes throughout the year. And so you were saying that you can put that up as a PDF with a note in that section.
Yeah, right at the top of the
Does that happen in kind of real time, and then the document gets changed once or twice a year? Or does it?
The posting to like that new law section or right above the chapter, usually a week or 2 after you've sent it. We try to do it within 3 business days. Sometimes holidays and weekends throw us, but usually if you give us something on Monday, by Monday next, it's there, it's incorporated, there's a little scroll or actually I think it's a gavel now that indicates that there is something there. And what's nifty about eCode as well is for department heads, they can actually go in and put notes in the code that are public facing. So if you guys, let's say you're doing a big discussion about your table of uses, and you want everybody to know, hey, this is a big, huge topic, we're going to spend the next 6 months discussing it. Lance can put a note right there that says, we're meeting on these days at these times discussing this section, we are soliciting public feedback and public comment, please be involved in these meetings. So there are a couple of different ways that you can see some community outreach there.
How do you do the mapping?
Mapping in terms of,
The zone has definition of property line boundaries and other specific edges to our zones.
Yep.
How do you do that?
When it comes to the regulatory text, we will reflect the text the way you want it to be shown. But in terms of mapping, we don't produce maps.
So how do we get that in there?
Maps are a good question. Typically, I say partner with your local GIS firm. If you have like a colored zoning map that you want to have appended to your code, we can put that in the code itself. General Code is not a mapping company. One of my folks has been asking for 10 years. There's no interest to move into doing mapping in terms of map generation. One thing that we do offer as a companion to eCode, it's called MapLink. It takes your existing shape files and pairs it with your zoning code. So if you typed in 123 Main Street, you get the regulations as they apply to that specific parcel. But again, we're not creating the actual map at that point. We're using the GIS shape files and working.
So that's a second step that we'd have to follow.
Yeah. I always say maintain a good, healthy relationship with your GIS folks. They're wonderful, and it's a skill set that we just don't carry inside.
Do we have somebody doing that now?
Shane is working on it, so the answer is
we don't.
yes.
The answer's no.
How about tables like this?
Yes, we can do colored tables, we can do white box tables. When we got what'd you send me, the 2024 updates, I think? Like
Oh, and the 5 new things that we
Yeah.
want to add?
So we had noticed some graphical elements in there, so we can replicate colored graphics and colorful tables. You had mentioned looking at other codes. Look at the town of Canton. Their planning director, Neil Page, went through a huge, what we call enhanced graphic code update. It's form-based zoning, but you can see full-colored tables and pictograms and illustrations are fully replicated in the eCode platform. We're actually the only codifier that can do it, because during COVID, we had nothing else going on, so we had our publishing team focus on learning how to ensure that whatever you pay for from a zoning firm to draw up, we can actually reproduce without any issues or problems.
So General Code, that's a company, it's privately owned?
General Code is now owned by the International Code Council. We
Okay.
were a privately owned company about 5 or 6 years ago. ICC reached out and said, hey, we want to do more at the local level, and we want to do more at the national level.
And then eCode itself is,
It's our product,
Software.
developed in-house, maintained by our editors. I know that we've had eCode since at least, I think, 2008. So,
your proprietary,
yes.
okay.
Now, the cool part about eCode is even though we own eCode 360, the software, you guys own your text, your regulations. So let's say you guys codified with us the zoning regulations, and 30 years from now you said, hey, you wanted to just go in-house. I will send you the PDF, I will send you an XML file, I'll send you a Word file, it's yours. You take it your own way.
That's
Knock on
written in
wood.
some contract?
What's that?
That's written in some contract?
Yeah, it's in our terms and conditions that
Uh-huh.
you own the information, we own the hosting. But our client retention rate over 20 years is 98%. That only happens because we have very, very dedicated staff. Most of my editors in the New England area have been with us over 15 years. So they have good working relationships with the folks at the local level, and they help translate that up to my corporate structure.
Yeah.
And then you also have me. So if you're unhappy, come down here, you can kick me around, I'll bring pizza, we can figure out what the issues are and fix them. But
So, no subscription cost, just pay to play?
so there
when you
is
make
one
changes.
fee that the town pays currently for
Yep.
eCode 360. It's $11.95 a year. I believe that's coming out of your clerk's budget. And then outside of that, it's just whatever updates. you
Okay, so annual and plus,
We're only ever
okay.
going to bill you for actual work that you have us do. I am down here tonight. It took 3 hours, 45 minutes to get here, 191 miles. I don't bill you for that. That is my cost of doing business. I don't come back to the town and say, here's my mileage bill. We
And-
only bill you for the actual editorial work that we do.
And then is the data, the language, the code, is it server-based or is it cloud-based? Is it, where's it?
Amazon Web Services, AWS to host everything in terms of like server access and cloud storage. The actual XML files we keep internally at General Code. It's a master file. Whenever we're ready to push an update, that update goes out. Like I said, there are only a couple people that actually have the ability to make it public, so you don't have to worry about Johnny the intern replicating and changing your zoning regulations. It shouldn't be there.
Well, also part of our regulations are subdivision regulations. Has that been?
So I found the inland wetlands on E-code. I did not see subdivision. I'll have to double check. Some towns do their regulations when they do their, the subdivision, inland wetland conservation. They'll do that alongside zoning. Sometimes they follow a little while later.
We did it separately.
Okay. Yeah. If you ever wanted to get your subdivision regulations on in the future, you could do that as well. I have a town in Maine, they went the other way. They did zoning, subdivision, and their conservation, and next year, they're gonna do their general ordinances.
Now, one thing that we were doing when we created this to begin with, when we changed, we had like 22 or 23 zones, and we went to around 8, or whatever the heck we have now, is we insisted that they do an index. So how does this work? I mean, just go into the regulations on the website, our town website, and then just put what you're looking for, and that's how you find it? Or is there an index or something in the code?
Yeah, so with E-code, there are a couple ways to do it. You could just do a link straight from the, actually, I'm pretty sure the town's website right now just says, ordinances, town code. You click it, it opens up to the main code page. But individually for your group, if you wanted to have on the planning board page, the zoning regulations, chapter 415, boom, right there, you can put a hyperlink there. If you wanted to do the, inland wetlands or the subdivision, you can just keep adding those hyperlinks to your town page. Once they click on it, it defaults over to E-code. They can do all that searching or that index search or any sort of keyword searching.
What towns are you doing this for now?
In Connecticut, 69 out of 169 municipalities.
I'd like to have you give me a name of
Yeah.
one so I could go in and look and see
Yeah.
what it looks
One
like.
that's completed we could look at now.
Canton.
Kent?
Canton. You could also look at Barkhamsted. Norwalk is a little south. Let me see.
Yeah, it'd be nice just to be able to see it.
Yeah, I
Funny,
just wanted to see what
so,
it looks like.
yeah. Try it.
Now, can you, Lance, work with this thing about the subdivision to make sure we've got that?
And Lance, do you have a draft of the original draft that was approved a couple years ago? To look at kind of
It really
layout.
wasn't approved. We didn't approve it.
Right, no, it wasn't approved. There was a lot of discussions about it, but
Much discussion,
yes. So,
Yes, lots of discussion.
but not approved.
Just a couple of
Yes.
other towns, Ashford, Bethlehem, Brookfield, Durham, Easton, Manchester.
Do you ever have any requests for analytics?
I'm sorry?
You ever have any analytical requests, like?
Yes.
If
so
someone
in
asked
code,
you-
You can look at, we have what's called a dashboard. If you are a municipal or administrative user, you can log in and you can see times of day that your code is being searched frequently, how many people have looked at it in the last 12 months, last 30 days. You'll also see if anybody's doing searches, what the top 10 search terms are in a 30-day period, as well as a 12-month period. So obviously cities will see, 100, 200,000 views a year. Most towns, like locally, we see about 20,000 views. It tends to be the average.
And likewise, can you do other towns too?
I'm sorry?
Ever had requests for other towns in terms of what are the top 10 code changes in other towns?
You would have to ask me for that data on the
Yep.
back end, but I can always give it to you. What you can do though on your end is look at every single code in our database.
Yeah.
So if you log into E-code, you could search every single code in Connecticut, or you could look just in a county or within a certain mileage from a zip code. But you could then say, hey, accessory dwelling units, those are always a problem, right? Well, what are they doing for accessory dwelling unit regulations within 50 miles of the town hall, right? But you'd be able to see every instance in those codes and refine down depending on what you wanted to see, or maybe you find language you like, steal it, slap your name on it. It's laws, right? Save yourself the headache of drafting new stuff. Just get a good structure that you're
Well,
happy
yeah,
with.
the 169 towns, so it's,
Yep.
There are 169 municipalities in Connecticut. We work with 70 of them. I'm trying to get the other 100, but it's not easy.
Keep trying.
Yeah. In Massachusetts, for example, 351 municipalities, we have 149 codes published. In Maine, 460, we have 32. That's a lot for Maine, because they just found the internet 2 years ago. So, yeah.
Might even get broadband too.
Exactly. In New Hampshire, where I'm from, it's abysmal. 269 of us, 14 towns have codified, but we don't put a priority on making things accessible or easy. stubborn, we're full of a bunch of libertarians and, angry farmers, right? But Connecticut is a very fast growing state, right? And you guys have your hands in everything at the state level, at the county level, at the local level. And what we do at General Code is trying to make it as easy as possible for your citizens to figure out what their local laws are, and for you folks, an easy way to ensure that they are maintained, whether it's this composition of the board or a totally different composition in 10 years. And thankfully, like I said, we have a pretty good reputation. Most of our folks like us.
Well, I think all of us are gonna have to do, I've marked down 4 communities, and there was more that you listed. I wanna take a look at this.
When we start back, whatever, on this quest that we started before,
Yeah.
are we gonna start with that original document again, or are you guys gonna check that? Because there was a lot of questions about it. It seems like there was stuff that was made up that wasn't anywhere in our regulations. It just didn't, going over it, just didn't
True.
seem like that was put into that document.
Yes, okay, so typically, what they'll do is when they do the editorial and legal analysis phase, if there is something that is, we'll say deficient, for lack of a better term, in your existing regulations, usually what they'll say is, your laws read X, the state says Y. Here are Z options that you can use to update your language or make corrective actions.
That really wasn't what we got when we were handed that manual.
What, the draft?
It was a draft. It really wasn't, we didn't get that
What
type
I'm
of stuff.
assuming, I don't wanna, what I'm assuming is maybe previous administration had a more hands-on approach with what changes they wanted to see implemented that did not.
No, that all came in when most of us were sitting here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was here, Peter was here,
Yeah.
George was here.
I do recall though, we had different versions of our code
Right,
we're
they gave
referring
you
to.
an ABC for different suggestions to change things that.
And who
Yeah.
does
where
that?
Our regulations conflicted with state statutes.
Yeah, so that
regulations.
analysis is, depending on how the community does it, is handled in one of a couple of ways. I've had some towns where it's the clerk, the manager, and the planning and zoning director. They do everything for the whole town, they bring it to the boards rubber stamp it, and it gets published. I've had other towns where boards such as yours tear apart their entire section, conservation tears apart their entire section. We have 400 different emails go back and forth. Claudia, Deb, and Stady piece it all back together the way it needs to go, so your changes are reflected, conservation's reflected, the town gets a code they're happy with. So, not being here when you did your project, I would assume that you guys probably made some of those decisions yourself, or maybe some of those decisions came from your administration or town council, depending on what the town wanted to see. The cool part is, your code's not yet published, at least the zoning's not, so we can still make changes now, so when it goes to the town for adoption, you're happy with it, and our editors have made sure that it reflects what you want to see. But the 95% of what we do is we just try to clean up anything that's duplicative or inconsistent, or, some towns, they'll define the term fence 9 different ways in 13 different sections of one zoning chapter. We don't like that, you don't like that, your citizens don't like that. We try to fix them.
But so who reviews that? Is there somebody at General Code that reviews all of that and highlights that for us, or
Yeah, so.
is it an attorney,
Those are my editors who will go through when they do that initial review. When you've returned the responses, it is typically your same project editor who then goes and incorporates that into the final draft, or the preliminary draft, and then the final draft. So Claudia Zuck was your code editor from project start to project finish. Y'all probably haven't met her video meeting, anything like that.
but so my question is, when you're making suggestions or changes to the regulations, it's the editor that's making those suggestions?
Yeah, so our editor with their legal experience, in Claudia's case, she's actually a licensed attorney out of the state of New York, so she's very skilled at reading state statute. She also, having been a general code, I think this is her 25th year, has the experience of having had her hands on 50 other codes in Connecticut. If it's not a code she actively created, she is one of our supplementation editors as well, so she is typically the one that is incorporating these changes. So she sees a lot of regulations for Connecticut. That's why I like when she works on my projects. We have a newer editor to New England New England specifically. Her name is Sadie. She's been with General Code. This is her 7th year, but she had never done Connecticut before. But she knows how to structure code. So when it came to that editorial and legal review, Claudia and Deborah spearheaded that. Sadie is learning from them on how to do it. Our editors don't get to touch a real live public code typically till about 3 years of training. And then after that, they don't get to create new codes till another 2-3 years after that initial 3 years. So we make sure that when people are giving suggestions or recommending changes, or even just highlighting, hey, this, and this looks funky, maybe you want to update it, that they are somebody who has the professional skill set to back up what they're saying. We don't want some randos, making suggestions, all town halls have to be painted purple, but it's also why we work with Lance and other, planning and zoning directors and department heads, because we want their local expertise building these codes.
Do we have some kind of a draft that you've already prepared? I mean,
Yeah, that would have been the one from September of 2022.
Do we have access to that somewhere?
Yeah,
She sent it in the email. I think.
she did, right? When were we chatting last? Was it around the 30th, I think?
Mhm.
So odds are, it's probably sitting in his inbox somewhere. I know for sure it's in mine, but I can't connect to the town Wi-Fi here. But it might help to just take a quick look at that draft again. If needed, we can also find the original analysis that she may have cited the analysis as well. But you can see the things that we highlighted and what decisions were made on the side of the town. I can't tell you specifically who made what suggestions. Like I said, it may have been some from this group or may have been from other groups, but at least you can see where the decision-making was and why we made certain changes we did.
Okay.
I'd also want to see, actually you sent it, but we're going to review every update you've made since, 2022 as well.
Yeah, we made quite a few changes.
Yeah,
And
there's been a lot.
added regulations also.
Absolutely.
So, when we go to adopt this E-code regulations, we have to go through the public hearing and
Yes,
all
we do.
that. So that's an opportunity for us, if there's some things in the code that we have now that we're not really happy with, we could
Oh,
change that, and it all
absolutely.
goes together as one thing.
Sure.
All right.
If you have previous complaints about existing regulations for the 2024 document, workshop them, send them through Lance over to me. We can make that language appear in the preliminary final drafts, whatever we got to do. So when you go to town meeting, you can say, hey, we as a board are approving of this and recommend you approve of this. In addition, we also made X, Y, Z changes for 2024 to, fix whatever the problem might be.
The document we have here is 2022, which
Yeah.
doesn't reflect any of the changes we've made.
There was a lot of radio silence between 2023 and January of 2024 when Lance had reached out, so I know that there was some turnover staffing-wise, and you guys are probably swamped with 10,000 other things, so I get it. We're committed to getting the project published, though, so we are a resource and a tool, so please feel free to use us. If you look at the adoption process as an avenue to correct some other deficiencies or things you're not happy with, let's do it, right? Get it all done, get you a nice, fresh
Yeah,
digital code.
unfortunately, it was presented by the town manager. We
Yeah.
didn't have I didn't see anybody from your company here.
I can't speak to what my predecessor did, but I will tell you, in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've driven like 30,000 miles across New England for general code. My wife is appalled by that. I am loving the hotel perks. But I go to the code enforcement conferences, I go to the clerks conferences, I present at select board meetings, sometimes I get yelled at select board meetings. I am around, my editor's around. They don't come out here physically because it's like a 6-10
It was,
hour ride. for them.
frankly, it wasn't presented very well.
Yeah.
And,
It happens.
and we had a problem. I don't know how everybody else feels. but
Yeah,
I
no,
a
we had
problem
issues with it.
with it.
And we're not getting any answers
Yeah.
to the issues.
Well, we want you to be happy, and, we have some towns where it's a very divided process after publication, where in most of my communities, like in Massachusetts, for example, the clerk will send every single update, regardless of what department had made that change. So I speak to Susie speaks to me, she sends me 30 different documents a year. I never talk to anybody else because they don't want to talk to me. Great, no big deal. I have other towns where the planning director and his or her staff specifically want to be in contact for the planning and zoning changes at all times, and the clerk wants no interest in dealing with that. It's a little different, but we can work with it. It's no problem for us to have 2 different contacts in a town. It's workable.
All right.
So,
Just, how how can we get a copy of what has been previously put together? I wasn't too impressed when we saw it years ago.
Yeah, I'll look through the email again. Maybe
Yeah.
there's an easier way to.
Can you get that to us and
present it.
then send it out to each of us on the
Yeah,
board?
I'm pretty sure I did on Saturday, but I'll look at it again. I think
You
that's
sent
the
it
same
to us
thing.
already?
But that was just a table of contents, that didn't look like the whole regulations, was it?
Why don't you, could you review it and just make sure we get it complete, whatever it is?
If worst
And,
comes to worst, I got a file folder filled with all your project materials, we can send that over, no big deal.
well, I want to be able to look at this, not just have a conversation like
Yeah.
tonight. We had some real difficulty even dealing with that, so we rejected it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I forget. I remember looking through a bunch of code. I looked at Bark Hampstead. I've seen cans too, but I don't recall, how do you integrate graphics? Sorry, just a little.
so
Whatever.
Canton is is the newer code that would have those graphics in there.
Yeah.
Form-based zoning in general is kind of the new thing. This has been out for at least 10 years, but it is kind of the new thing now. Just in terms of municipalities adopting form-based codes. Because you're traditionally, Euclidean zoning is black and white, basic text, very boring tables. It's awful to look at. It's even worse to like peel through a full book for it. With E-code and the ability to replicate those colorful drawings now, we can make it a much more interactive and robust experience. And what you'll see in Canton is when you go into their zoning chapter, there's the traditional index and chapter scheme on the left-hand side table of contents. But on the right-hand side, there's a special table of contents that only appears in the zoning chapter. So you can go by those individual sections, and you'll see that those are numbered Roman numerals on the right-hand side. But you know, whether it's special zoning districts or district description or whatever it is, it's just another way to make their code more intuitive. But they're a great local example. When the city of Norwalk finally finishes their 4-year zoning rewrite, we will be integrating that. Every time I talk to their planning and zoning director, he says, hopefully next month. It's been 2 years.
Well,
So-
everybody volunteers on these commissions, that's the
Exactly.
problem.
It takes a while, but we've been doing this for 63 years, so, and we're not going anywhere. If it takes
Okay.
you guys some time, it takes us some time, no big deal.
So we're gonna get some information through from you. Look and see if we've got subdivision regulations as well, and what those are being considered. We haven't really talked about those, we haven't had any even requests for subdivisions in a long time. But it was taken, Bud Whalen chaired that part of the reviews, and it created that. We've got a list of communities, we can look at their zoning regulations that are what you described. Anybody else have any other suggestions, so we can look at this and deal with it?
I mean, I'm happy to give it a good review, but I would like to just see how it's different from what we currently have and kind of what the
Yeah.
format looks like before I make any.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
we've gotta get this in front of us, because, all right, any other questions, Adam? John?
Can we steal from the graphics at Canton? Is
Uh,
that their property
Yeah, I
or?
mean, if you wanna reuse other elements, just email Neil. If he, wants to let you rip off his stuff, by all means, it saves you money, right? What I'll do when I get, not when I get home tonight, tomorrow morning, not midnight. I will look for some Connecticut-specific zoning codes. I don't think Bark Hempstead has their zoning regulations codified, but I know for a fact Canton does, but I'll look to see other communities that have codified their
So
zoning.
Bark Hampstead is not?
Yeah, I'll have to double check. A lot of the Litchfield County communities still haven't fully embraced codification in general, and the ones that have, they haven't brought their zoning regulations online. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge, we like having examples to show off, to show communities what they can aspire to be. But I'll look for some Connecticut-specific examples.
All right. Are you aware of all we're talking about, Lance, so you can follow up with us?
Yep.
Okay, not halfway, not partway. Get us
Nope.
the information.
Yep.
If we don't get it, I'm not gonna be interested in making a decision until we do.
This might be frustrating for you, but something to consider is we wrote your original 2022 draft in the context of your previously existing 2021, 2022 regulations. So when you're looking at your 2024 stuff, you're probably gonna say, hey, they didn't actually do this. We probably just didn't have it at the time. I can look, if it helps, to find the original zoning regulation document we work with, so you can kind of side by side if you wanted to. But it's just something to think about when you're going through, if you recently allowed, cannabis dispensaries in the town in the last 6 months, we obviously wouldn't have that, so
Sure.
please don't think that we intentionally left it out.
No, I understand. There's
Yeah,
been
so
a,
these 2022 regulations are the ones you used?
Yes,
Okay, so.
yeah. I would assume the original project started in 2020, so we would have worked with everything up to, I believe, April 2022 is when we sent you the draft out.
So not,
It's a June 2022,
Yeah, not
so
this.
not
Okay.
these.
I can double check to find the original project materials.
all right, can you summarize that with Lance, and then Lance refer it to the commissions, please? Any other questions from everybody?
Not for me.
Any training or tutorials to help us navigate the app or the search engine? Do you have anything like that online, or?
In and of itself, it's fairly intuitive. However, on the, I believe it's the resources page, there's a whole bunch of trainings that you can sign up for. They're totally free. They're usually 20, 30 minutes in length. There's also a couple of like e-code and 30 or 60-second videos, or how to search, or how to find, or how to link. But when I email Lance tomorrow morning, I can include that link as well.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. See, we didn't receive this, it was just do it.
Yeah.
We're a
I'm
little resistant.
always get all the information out there so you can make an informed decision type of person.
Well, that's what we
instead
have to do, because we worked hard here in this little enterprise that we're involved with. Peter, can you continue with this? I've got to run. Thank you. Here's the, sorry, but I got to.
No, that's understandable. Number 7, other business. Anything, Lance?
I just left it on there in case people
Okay,
had any other business.
Town planner report.
Sure.
We've got an excellent report from Jeff. He's been very busy.
All right, so as you know, the first meeting of the month, we tried to do planning issues, so, housing is coming up, let's just say that as a topic of, interest. A lot of projects with potential, things like 10 Bridge Street has come up, I don't know if you noticed. Recently, it's now for sale again, so the partner that we did have for the redevelopment of that has backed out, essentially. So that will come up again as, probably a priority for focusing on. One,
Don't ever consider taking ownership of that?
I don't know. Could ask.
You have an assessment grant, right?
We have an assessment grant for it? I don't know, I could ask Tom. Alright. 108 East Lake Street, the old nursing home. We've had quite a few people come in, interested, and then they get in there and they just realize just how much work needs to be done. I don't know if it necessarily has to be demolished yet, but it's probably getting very close to that point where starting fresh is probably better than trying to work with what's there, especially since now it seems to be getting breached more often. I've asked both Augie and Jeff when they're out on inspections just to kind of go through there and see if there's any changes, and we'll keep eyes on it more regularly. But yeah, I don't know what your feelings are. I know we're gonna have our next meeting, and housing is gonna be the focus with all the land use boards, so I didn't know if that one could come up specifically for conversation.
Any activity with Bachelor School?
Yeah, they did come in and we met with them. They're trying to get their funding in place because their deadline with the town is October 2025 for their, to purchase it.
And they get congressional designated spending for that project?
They did. And you weren't there at that meeting, were you?
What was that?
You were at Bachelor? Where was that left?
They were gonna try to solidify the property boundary because
Oh,
the
right.
town wanted to maintain ownership of
Yeah.
the barn.
The rural
shed,
and
whatever.
wooded areas.
Yeah, so they had to come up with that property line. There was also a question of an underground storage tank. The state seems to think it's in
Yep.
need of removal.
Yeah, there
might
is,
be some information that says
right where the
that
flagpole is,
it had been replaced, so
There's
that is in the
needs
works.
removal. I was on the school building committee for many years.
Yeah.
And
So the good news is they do not plan to reuse that tank, it's coming out one way or the other.
Right.
It's just a question, the state wants it done yesterday, and they're saying,
But
"Well,
Yeah.
the
would you
project's
say it was-
tomorrow."
Yeah, there was monitoring added to that tank about 9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago.
That's what they mentioned.
Some funding came about through the town, and actually it was probably 11 years ago. It was dug up and inspected, pressurized, and monitoring was added to that tank.
All right.
But I think that's definitely past its life cycle.
Yeah, and it's gonna be retired
Yes.
anyhow.
And the impression was it was empty anyways,
Yeah.
so,
Well,
So they got-
they're not heating the building?
no,
Okay, because there's no gas up there.
right.
Because the schools had put dual fuel burners in there, and then the nearest gas is down the intersection with the street going up to the lake.
Okay.
They're anticipating, electric heat pump mini splits.
Yes. Do you want to talk about 41 Meadow? Not for housing, but we had a meeting with Tom F. Lynn, which I was ecstatic that finally happened. And Brista, on behalf of the COG, is working on Brownfield's application for that in 3 Meadow, the parking lot.
Yeah, so there's a municipal brownfield grant program out right now there's two different one's for assessment and one's for remediation. So, Tom bought the property in 2013, 14, or maybe even 2004, maybe even longer than that now. But at the time, the town had some brownfield money, so there was all these promises to try to help, get through the Transfer Act stage of what he did, so there's been some work done, but no money ever ended up coming his way, so he's kind of stuck in this situation where he's doing his best to keep the roofs on and keep it maintained and weather tight, but can't really do a redevelopment project. So looking at that and the site the town owns next door, looking at them together, to do some assessment, we can apply for up to $200,000 per property, to hopefully identify, more clearly identify what the contamination is and if there's any restrictions on uses, and then come up with a remedial action plan.
Looking at doing the whole property?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because, the railroad ran right through the middle of that,
Yeah.
so you're gonna get coal tar and
Yeah, there's a
all that
lot
stuff
of
from a million things from the plating processes they did and everything else there, so.
But I think, we need those professionals to be at the table with us to help guide what a redevelopment plan might look
Well,
like.
and the property owner needs the help and assistance,
Yeah.
because it's nothing he could do or
Right,
fund,
and,
that's for sure.
and the funding, but also, you might have all these great ideas and find out you have some kind of contamination that prohibits what you can do or makes it
Right.
not feasible. So before going through all that pre-development, really identifying what's there, so that's what the grant's intended to do. We're applying as a COG because I can do a multi-site application. So I'll do the 2 sites, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we're
Hopefully,
competitive and we get some funding.
that would be good.
So the old, the spillways are, not the spillways, the waterfall that's
Yeah.
on 41, the retention pond behind that, is that part of looking
Yeah.
at?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's full of contaminants.
Yeah, but that all came from.
Although that
up-
came from
all-
Union Pin.
That all
Yeah,
came
that
up
all
the
came
hill.
from Union Pin.
It should have been part of that remediation.
Yes, I know. Yeah, because that's full of silt in there.
I think I can let everyone know Jamie Legacy has been hired as the new fire chief, he is the
Fire
chief.
marshal.
Fire marshal. He's also gonna be doing housing inspection. So the fire marshal is going to now be underneath the town manager's office, but the housing inspector will stay within the land use department, and we're gonna team up with him and Augie to basically get on top of that. So we have a meeting on the 18th of this month to start working on our game plan to get those up to speed, and then we have our meeting on the 19th to talk about housing as well, so I figured I'd bring it up.
Are you hiring a new chief?
Yeah, that's in the process now. Yep. So Jamie probably won't make the official leap over until like mid-October, but he's already been involved, and we met quite a few times so far. All right. So I think all of you may have told you Noah Farms is planning to be at our next meeting for text amendment for, large-scale cannabis, or what did they end up calling it? Do you remember that?
Not large scale, just cannabis cultivator.
Cannabis
The only
cultivator.
qualifier is the minor cannabis cultivator.
Okay. So the outdoor growing.
But they're not gonna come to next meeting,
It's either
right?
micro or.
Next meeting. Oh, will they come?
That's how they're reporting it.
They'll just submit the application,
They're
we'll
just
set a
submitting.
public hearing date, and then
Correct.
they'll come.
Yep. So they're planning on the October 28th for the public hearing, if that's what they end up deciding. I don't think there's any more changes planned. I just talked with the lawyer last week, and I know there was a piece if we wanted to do a field trip up to Sheffield again now while they're harvesting. Unfortunately, the timeline is not really working out for me, and Willie's not here. I was trying to get all of us that went.
I did take a ride by the one in Morris
You did. Oh, and Morris. Oh, yeah.
on Sunday, Saturday.
What did you think?
The smell was terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
The wind was blowing from the south right up north, and the smell was horrendous. I wouldn't want to live anywhere near there, believe me. And it did look like a prison with tarps on the fence.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
No way. But for the record, it smelled terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
So I would like to go to the Sheffield facility, and I have a feeling just standing out by the road, we would know. We don't necessarily have to be
I
in it.
drove by quickly yesterday, but there was a slight odor
Okay,
in a certain area, but just driving by. So.
okay.
But nowhere near as bad as what Morris was.
Yeah. Yeah, the Morse setup is not good at all, unfortunately, and
It didn't
How
look
is it
good.
different from what?
from what they did in Sheffield and what we would expect here is enough of a buffer, first of all. And second of all, the, visually, like I said, it looks like a prison, the way that it's set up with the fencing outside in Morris.
So when I talked to the first selectman in Morris, he said that he gets complaints from a mile away.
You can
From
smell them.
I
houses-
believe it.
From houses
Yeah.
a mile away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
it probably wasn't.
Saturday afternoon, I
safe
could
as
smell
well
it,
either.
half a mile away at least.
So, would you like to go up?
Yeah,
or-
sure.
Okay, I mean, so let's see if I can figure out a different date. They were able to do Thursday at 9. Unfortunately, I'm double booked now.
9 a.m.
Unless you
Well,
guys wanted to
This
go.
week is off.
No, well, they're done and they're on vacation next week because they're
Okay,
finished with
so
the
they'll,
cultivation.
okay, so we're not going this week.
Yeah, well, it would be ideal to go this week, but like I said, I just wrote to Wallace again to see if maybe he could do. Are you available on Wednesday? Try to do Wednesday morning instead.
I can't till later Wednesday morning.
Okay.
That'd be 10 o'clock or later.
Well-
Would be all right if Shane went as the office.
Well, that's what I'm
representative
wondering. Maybe
along
just
with-
Shane can go with you guys, and she was planning on going anyways. And I could just go on Friday on my own, and I'll probably be able to get a gist of it pretty easily.
Why not Thursday?
We got another potential pre-application meeting that I got to meet with the folks first. So,
Yeah,
Kinda
Wednesday
came
would have to be
together
after
today.
10 o'clock, anytime after 10, so.
well, do you want to go with Shane on Thursday morning at 9? And I'll just keep that
I mean,
appointment with him.
not unless someone else can go. I mean, it's, I think, just the way. Can you go Thursday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you could, yeah, definitely.
I just think it would be helpful.
No, I mean, if Adam can go, that'd be great, because then
Right.
we've got another set of eyes from the
Yeah.
commission. to
Okay,
see it.
well, that's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, you already had experience there, so you already know what the site looks like.
Yes,
I mean, kind of
yeah.
got it just from photos.
And know where it
images.
is and everything. And Shane
Right.
couldn't make it the last time, so if he could go Thursday and Adam can, I mean, we could
All right,
be here at 9 o'clock and leave.
all right.
There's
We'll
another
plan
farm like maybe a mile away too, out in Sheffield
Yeah,
on the side of the road.
okay,
Another neighborhood. I mean, just drive by it.
Go
You know
smell
where-
that one too?
yeah.
Why not? Just
Yeah.
get a sense.
Stop at a few
Yeah,
dispensaries.
nope, that's fine,
Okay,
okay.
well, thank you.
Get a day trip.
9 AM Thursday here.
And I will probably just end up going up Friday on my own then. All right, cool, thank you.
So they're coming with, next meeting, they're coming with proposed draft?
Yes,
for
and then,
cultivator.
and then the attorney wants to stagger it, so if you approve the changes to the regulations, then they're gonna come in with their site plan for the special permit application, not do it all together, so.
And is there any other ancillary operations that would require, not just cultivator, but, I don't know, distribution, or was there, I'll have to look at the Connecticut.
Yeah, I mean, the greenhouses and everything is already allowed.
Yeah, the only thing we had was the temporary structures.
Mhm.
We talked about the porta pots where we really didn't want the porta pots, it should be in a contained trailer, or at least they've got some
Yep.
inside. You know, they can still be pumped by, like they do with the porta pots and things like that, they have the rental trailers.
So if the flash freezing in Sheffield kind of does take care of the smell, I think that would be,
But how do you put
Beneficial
that
to know.
into the code?
well, it'd have to be a condition of approval, I think.
We'll talk about it.
I know, we have to get to that point
Seeing
if we
as-
do, but.
Seeing,
Well, I'm glad you went to Morris, because I agree, that kind of bothered me too, like, I'm pretty sensitive
yeah, I
to
don't know what
it.
type of operation they have, you went through it, but,
Yeah. No,
No.
we weren't even allowed
Oh,
on
you
site,
didn't even
we
go on
just went
site?
around the
Okay.
fence, and I was just like, geez, this is terrible.
yeah.
I don't even mind saying it on camera,
No,
because
no,
it is terrible.
I'm not, I'm
We're
not
not
afraid of
doing
saying it. I was there and looked at it.
There was like basically no buffer from the operation
To the house next door.
neighborhood
Right.
on that
No, there's
street.
nothing,
Right.
there's
Oh my
nothing,
God.
no. And they've got a little tiny place to park 8 or 10 cars for employees that were parked there Saturday when I was there. And other than that, there was nothing.
It was a rough site.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Talked about 10 Bridge Street. EDC is gonna be hosting a restaurant week in town in March. March 21st through the 29th. And I think what they try to do is have restaurants have special menus during that time frame to people come out and experience. And they're trying, the reason why they picked that time frame is they're not trying to compete with other towns, and it's like the slow time when people go out for dinner, so that was beneficial for the restaurants. And there's a
Everybody's filing their
subcommittee
income
that's working on
taxes,
that. What's that?
Everybody's filing their income taxes, so
Yeah, probably.
that's why it's so slow.
I had
April, whenever it gets there.
Yes.
had a very productive meeting with Park Place Hardware. I don't know if everybody knows Albert Pertrini.
Matrunti.
Thank you. Nice guy. A lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm for town. I enjoy talking with him a lot. They just took on Steel as their chainsaw. They already had Benjamin Moore, and they're affiliated with Ace Hardware, but they're going to be doing a whole new marketing. They're going to change the facade of the building, pretty much redoing the inside of the store. So he's really spending a lot of time and effort to
Yeah, they've
make
been
the
working
store
on that a lot
modernized.
the last year.
Mhm. So, and it was interesting to talk with him because he has a production company on the side, and he's already said to EDC he's willing to do some flying a drone over downtown, take some pictures, and
His drone videos are awesome. Some of the best in the world. Has a good business doing that.
so.
My son and him are best friends. They graduated through
Oh, yeah?
school
Okay.
together. Still are best friends, yeah.
Neat. Yeah, good guy. I met him just by chance at Soldiers Monument. He was there with the emergency management group.
Yeah.
Seen that trailer of his?
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, he'll, every once in a while, a good clear night, he'll be up at the firehouse in Winchester Center doing stars and planets and everything else through telescopes and stuff, yeah.
Pretty neat. The last piece, which does affect you guys, is Architectural Review Committee. We're having their super group meeting finally. So Historic Commission has been working on these wayside exhibit signs for the past 3-4 months. And it's time now to get together with the ARC, so Charlene, Kate, and Donna, and just start basically whittling down the design, what we want to see on the signs, and then what would be pitched to the Board of Selectmen for approval. So I'm excited about that, and it's good because Architectural Review is remote. We just get pretty much signs for new businesses that come in town. We really haven't get anything for facades for them to review. So we do it pretty sporadically. It'd be nice if we got into a little bit of a schedule for meetings, and this project seemed to be maybe a way to start that happening. Is there any other questions you guys have for me about things you've been thinking about?
Where are we at with the trail completion of that?
Mad River? Oh, Sue Grossman.
Sue Grossman.
All right.
Don't
So the
That's getting
frustrating
so old,
thing
it's
is,
growing weeds, so.
we only recently, and I wasn't part of the meeting, but there was a meeting beginning of August where it came out there is a 20% match required for the funding that we had already secured. So now I met with Paul, town manager, and our grant super manager, Tom, and said, well, okay, well, where are we going to come up with approximately $500,000 in the next essentially 2 years?
5,500 or 55,000?
55,000? No, five.
It's $5,000 in front of
They
the
would come up
fundraiser.
No, it's 500,000 we have to come up with as the match.
So
Yes.
not
Half a
5,500.
million?
So
Yeah, so half a million. we're looking at now.
$500,000, all right.
So super frustrating if we have to give this money back. 'Cause
Where's
that
the
does not
funding
look
come
good.
from?
It was 2 years ago,
State,
state monies.
Yeah.
I don't know offhand, actually.
might have been DOT Rails to Trails program or something.
Probably
No, it wasn't that,
No.
because I would have
Just to clarify,
approved that.
$500,000 is 20%.
of
So
the
how-
2 million we were awarded. Whatever that ends up being, but yeah. No, am I saying it right? Can't do my math at this late. But it is ends up being 500,000.
It was
we gotta
$2
come up
million
with.
from where to where?
The length, you mean?
Yeah,
It would get us to downtown. It's pretty much
DOT,
for the
but
rest of
ends at
it.
the DOT right now.
yeah, but why do you need $2 million? We had the money set aside for it, and then we had to turn it back because, well, we had the money, we ended up using it to the section to DOT, but we couldn't go all the way down because we didn't have the, Army Corps wanted
Right.
either a fee or dedicate other money inside. And with Bachelor School, with us putting the easement on that other property, that's wetlands, that's ridgeline, I think that we should talk to Army Corps and say, hey, we're gonna put an easement over this land or the new land that the land trust is taking, so we don't have to pay a big fee to the Army Corps. And then that's only like a $500,000 project, maybe $750,000. And so the biggest part was the Army Corps fee. And nobody wanted to set land aside because they didn't want to take more land off the tax rolls. But Bachelor's already off the tax rolls, and the Winchester Land Trust is already taking all that property off the tax rolls. So we should be working at trying to see if any of that land would compensate, so we don't have to pay a fee, so it's not that much money.
Yep.
And then, the match won't be as much.
Lance, if the sewer line were constructed underneath the greenway there, couldn't that be considered matching dollars on the town's behalf?
Yes.
Yeah.
So not the city, not the sewer line itself, but a lot of the work, the earth excavation work, that can be done. We did that in Torrington, and yes, that could be part of the match. If the time frame works out. And it's encouraged. So many times people encourage trails on top of sewer lines because it protects the sewer lines from trees growing, provides access, and then you kind of know what's going on there. So that's,
When did this start? Project?
The project?
1996? No. No. But no, the original section.
The original section.
Yeah, and then we did a joint grant with the town of Winsted and the city of Torrington. We submitted a joint grant together to get the funding to construct what's there.
Yep.
But the funding that Winsted got originally was meant to get it all the way down to the skate park. But it wasn't enough funding because cost increased, but mainly because of Army Corps. And I think you got, what, $875,000, and we got $225,000, it was a little over $1 million, 1.2 million between the two towns. And so you got all the design done. So this
Which is not good, though. The original design that was done, first of all, the drawings are not valid. Second of all, that's not gonna be the route anymore. It's not going through the wetlands. It's going onto 137's property.
But, well, I mean, didn't WMC just redo all those and they had got wetlands approval and everything for them?
That's what Jim Rollins told me. WMC's drawings were pretty much worthless.
I mean, it might be worth keeping the same route because it's all the survey and most of the design, you might just have to update some of the design. Cause that's gonna be $200,000 just in design.
Well, the next route is to do a feasibility study from Cardinals, which where we're gonna use the engineers, and focus on 137's property.
Yeah, so I mean, this is my kind of problem with a lot of this. You do feasibility, you do design, there was all this public outreach to come down Winston Road, feasibility studies, surveys, design, approvals, now to scrap it and start all over, unless there's a good reason, but, I mean, we even got Army Corps approval to say, yes, go ahead, just they told us the fee. I think that's a lot of money to just scrap, cause we, you know, maybe there's an alternate route or a loop trail or something, but I would say, let's look at what we
Back
have,
to the original railroad right away,
cause a lot of
even
money
though
has
there's
been
a couple that are
spent.
privately owned.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of
Well,
money
shape
has
of it.
been spent to do that. A lot of public outreach has been done, I mean, a lot of it, that's what the original Winston Trails walked it all, planned it, we had press out there, we had public meetings, I mean, a lot of work has been done, and there's good reason to, I don't really care where the route goes, I'm not so set in it, but what my frustration is, we're not gonna get anything done if we keep doing feasibility and design, so, but, I'll let you guys.
No, I'm glad you told me a little bit of the back, but, you know, obviously, the better trail is have it on the inside of Still River Wetlands Complex. That's a
Well-
much nicer height than being right up along 800.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't like it to be, they like the visibility, they don't wanna be.
It would still be high
secluded.
visibility though, and it would help with the redevelopment on 137, in my opinion, but.
Well, and maybe it's a loop trail, maybe it can be a loop or
Mhm.
both, you know, but to, I don't know.
Well, all right.
So we gotta get the funds back end of this year?
No, no, but we do have to come up with some creative funding if we get a, but I like your thoughts with Bachelor and Laurel Ridge. I mean,
But that's
Why not?
only for that, but that's for that section that comes
Right.
right down through. Army Corps has approved it. It took us a year and a half to get Army Corps approval. And then they said, yes, we'll approve it, but we want either X number of feet or X number of acres set aside. And so that's why we had to stop at DOT. Because anything half acre or more, under a half acre is a general permit through Army Corps. So this is 0.49 acres, and the Army Corps said, no, you're not under that. You're a half acre, you need a full permit. And so we didn't have to execute that permit because the disturbance up into DMV was under that half acre. But once you got beyond that, that's when that triggered that approval.
yeah.
So that's why that
All
didn't
right.
move forward. But that might just save money. We might not need $500,000 to construct
Right.
that part. And then we can still look at doing something, you know, that maybe loops around or provides
right.
connectivity to the neighborhoods.
Is there an active commission for this, or is it just?
No, but we're gonna talk at the Conservation Commission about a subcommittee. Yeah, this is the bummer that I wasn't part of town yet when all this kinda happened, so.
And why didn't they follow the original old railroad bed all the way into Winston to the skate park? Because they,
Well, it doesn't
Property owners that
technically exist anymore. So the CLMP, aka Eversource,
two pieces there that are not Eversource, that are
Right.
privately owned, I realize that.
but what happened was when Route 8 like expanded at some point, it's in the old rail bed. Like the trail, if you look at that hillside, there's no rail bed there anymore. It's Route 8 was built into it. So so that would be one piece that's got to be dealt with either way. If we're gonna, that's the route they want to go, which I think is better than trying to bring it in front of DPW, Lippincott, roads. I mean, there's
Yeah.
too much.
If you had the old rail bed, you'd be behind the buildings,
Right. Well, that's the new plan.
and that would be the best way,
Right.
really.
And everybody's
And
in
that gets you
flavor
away
of
from
that.
all the wetlands
Right.
down below New Street.
Yep.
Because it crosses way below there.
Yeah, that's what the goal is on that side, once you get to New Street intersection. But when you're down to DMV to get to New Street, that's why we were looking at 137 as a new route. And stay inside the wetlands on that side.
Right.
And Craig had talked about like some nice
Yeah,
overlooks.
yeah,
and-
because the rail bed, you know, is right
The rail
there.
that, you're right, it's
It's
still
right there
there,
by
but
the
it's,
wetlands, yeah.
it's like, nature is taking it over at this point afterwards, and so you gotta disturb all that.
Right.
Yeah, but it's so disturbed, so there's so much sand and salt from the road in there that it wasn't high functioning wetland. It was all
No.
disturbed
No,
from
it's-
being the roadside. And then everything kind of on the other side of that berm was still the Still River and,
There's enough salt in there from the state
right, right.
over the years that went in there. So, okay, next.
That was good. What else you got?
Jeff, you got anything for us, or?
Well,
I mean,
Well,
I saw your
thought was gonna
report, it
present
was
you
great.
a shorter report this time, and then it ballooned into 7 pages, but, as always, I'll take any specific questions. One of the highlights is we started to, do some driveway enforcement. So I got these first 4 letters out, we got a great response. The, first 3 have already been in touch about, getting their permits, 2 have actually already pulled them. 815 East Wakefield Boulevard is everyone's favorite washed out driveway down at the lake. I was anticipating getting an earful after sending that letter, but turns out the son of the owner called me. He is a highway foreman down in Ridgefield. He completely understands where we're coming from and the need to address it. Furthermore, he wants to make sure that he's not just pushing the water onto somebody else and having a problem with them, so he really wants to try to come up with a design that's gonna fix the whole issue. So Jim's gonna be involved in that, I'm gonna be involved in that, we're gonna try to come up with a whole plan. So that will continue, I've got a few more pictures of yet more driveways that were done without permits, so a lot of this is just getting the word out to the pavers and both the residents that
So,
it's a
when we
permitted
did the
activity.
driveway ordinance with the paving and all that, there was talk about sending letters out to the pavers, because we had Hawk in here, and he said that he deals, permits are no problem, he pulls the permits, if he knows he's gotta have a permit, he pulls, he puts up the bond and all that, he has the secretary, he has an account with the towns, where he doesn't have to send a check every time, they just take money out of his account.
Mhm.
So,
And that's true for Hawk, he is operated under those, you know, rules, if you will.
right, so, you know, it seems like it would benefit the homeowners and the town to send letters out to these pavers that we have that haven't gotten, no, see, so you're going after the homeowners, but does the paver actually know the homeowner's in trouble now?
So, we have no choice but to go after the homeowner, that's just the
Right,
way it
right,
works.
so,
But for instance, I saw one driveway being installed without a permit, and I got back to my desk, and I called that office, and I spoke with the woman in charge there, and she said, oh, okay, we won't do any more work, we'll pull the permit, we'll do it all right. They finished the driveway, they never pulled the permit. So that's one that's on this list.
Right.
So, you know,
no, they're in the
whether
middle,
they know it and whether
they're
they
in the
do
middle, but
it
they're not gonna stop.
are different things. But hopefully, like I said, the word is spreading on this.
And that's something where you may wanna reach out to Kurt Moffett or something and have him put something in the newspaper that, you know, we have these new driveway ordinance regulations and there are permits required, so the homeowners, not that everybody reads the newspaper, but at least it's out there in the public a little bit.
Yeah, the last time I tried to publicize,
I know.
any rules, it really
Doesn't
went
go very
wild.
In fact, so how many pavers do we have operating in the area? Do we have an idea?
There's probably 5 or 6 that, are regularly pulling permits,
And
and, maybe 3 or 4 that have gone without so far.
so do you think the word's gotten out to the pavers now that they need to pull the permits?
I hope so.
I hope so, okay.
Yeah, I won't know for
Good.
sure.
This was something that I was worried about was gonna happen, and we needed to tell the pavers that they had to pull them.
Yeah.
Because, when Troy was here, he was complaining about the added cost putting it on, for the bond, putting on, do we still have a bond requirement in the paving?
Mhm.
The bond would be an added cost for the homeowner to put the bond up, and the pavers to just move it from one job to the next. I mean, that was something Troy was very adamant about. And I just kind of think, you know, I hope we didn't get lost in that conversation. I hope that didn't go away.
No, it hasn't gone away.
So,
It's
you know.
just getting everyone to operate within
Yeah,
the framework.
if we have regulations that weren't there before, did they get well publicized? They tried to be. Did we contact the pavers? No, I guess we didn't. But it seems to me that,
Well, we invited 3 or 4 different paving outfits, I think,
Yeah, we
to
got
the
one.
meeting, and we got one.
yeah,
So, yeah, they,
Well, and it's
And he was following
the same thing
everything, yeah,
with building permits, you know?
right.
Building office runs into that every day.
probably why he showed
People
up.
that don't get permits, whether it's a deck or whatever, you know?
Well, I'd say a lot more folks are getting caught doing stuff without permits.
Because a lot of, it's visible.
Right.
Yes.
So I just wanted to touch on that. Other than that, the Kingsbury Avenue is
so 13 Upson Avenue.
13 Upson Avenue.
We've
Yes.
all been looking at that today and talking about it.
Yep.
It's not in the HL district.
It's in town, single family.
Okay. What's the point there?
No,
It's right here. You
said
you
it's-
brought it up as being in the HL district.
Oh, well, either way, a landscaping construction yard wouldn't be
Not
allowed.
allowed.
Now, Mr. Skilton's contention was that he's pre-existing non-conforming, but that really has to do with the machine shop, for lack of a better term, that had always been operating in that property. So to me, if a landscaping outfit is gonna continue working out of there, they should apply for a permit, and the commission should decide whether or not that is a valid continuation of a non-existing.
Well, what permit would he apply for?
Well, in this case, a landscaping yard.
Wait, first question is, when did the machine cease doing business there?
I think Skilton would tell you he's still hobbies in there as a machine shop.
Okay. No, that's a question I would have,
Yeah.
so.
But they haven't been back in yet to apply for a fence permit, which they said they were gonna do.
Okay.
He's got some issue with the folks at 15 Upson, which I don't think appears on this report, that was more of a wetlands.
Oh,
issue.
that was mentioned that was blighted.
Yeah, it's blighted as well, but they started cutting all the trees down without any sort of notification, so that's how they got through, or to the wetlands committee. But Skeleton used to own 15 as well, and he sold that off, and now the folks that are at 15 are enjoying 13's property, and it's a whole thing.
Quite a mess.
So this is why I like fences.
So do you regulate fences
In what way? Well, it requires a zoning permit.
for any
so-
fence?
Yeah,
That is so unusual.
I'd like not to have to.
Yeah, where in here does it say that it does?
Uh,
Because in every town that I've ever worked in, you can put up to a 6-foot fence. on
With
your
no
property,
zoning
With no
permit?
zoning permit, because it can go right on the property line, we don't care.
Yeah,
And if
well, we've
it's-
been advising everyone at least 2 feet off the property line for
You can
maintenance of
advise
their
them whatever they
trespass.
want, but they can put it wherever they want. They can put it any side they want, if they encroach over the property line, it's a civil matter.
Yep, and we've been getting those lately.
Yeah, it's a civil matter. You shouldn't be like, unless there's something in here that specifically says that there's a setback for fences, what are you regulating?
The HL district has a fence description, regulation, and height and stuff, because fences in HL district at one time were a very, very sore subject.
Blocking people's views and such.
Yes, there was that happening. And I remember that came through then, because fences right down to the water line were just cutting everybody else's view off. And there was a lot of angry people, especially in one property that I can remember.
And some higher than 6 foot, so.
So maybe we only need to regulate it in HL?
Fences or walls within 20 feet of the high water line or exceeding 4 feet in height shall require a special permit. Just like any fence that exceeds 8 feet, or I don't know if it's 6 or 8, whatever it is, requires a building permit.
Right.
But if they're under, no permit's required.
Well, that'll make our fence issues easier.
Yeah, they're civil matters, and they can take up so much time. You know, unless there's a regulation, or so, New Hartford had a regulation, any fence up to between 8 and 12 feet needed a special permit. So you didn't need any permit unless you wanted a taller fence.
Yeah.
So, and kinda I would say the same thing with this, unless, you know, it meets this
Unless it meets all the HL rules.
criteria, then
Yeah.
they don't need a permit. You can't be regulating every fence in town, that's crazy.
No.
So maybe that's something when they do the E-code, they'll pick up on. That we have this fencing regulation that's nobody else has.
We don't have a fencing
If they see it in HL, then they would probably
Yeah,
be
and
okay
that.
with it because it's called out.
But we don't have it anywhere else, right? So you're not, what are you permitting? To make sure it's,
On their property is basically what we've been
yeah,
doing.
that's just, but you don't know that without getting a survey for everything. So, then it becomes a civil matter, a dispute over where the property line is.
All right, well, that's a discussion point for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it saved you, so you have, look at this enforcement list, you were so, doing so much work.
Well, I can peel a few off here.
Yeah,
So I was saying Kingsbury Avenue, that sweep worked out pretty well. The biggest holdout there is the build of the new house at 240, and that is still winding its way through wetlands for approvals.
where's Kingsbury Avenue?
It's off of
Pertrock.
Pertrock and the East Wake.
It's almost like a paper road.
Yeah,
It is.
privately owned.
Yeah, privately owned.
Yeah.
And there's two buildings in there, and then there's, it's just, how do you sort through where the property lines are?
Yeah, exactly. Well, luckily, one guy owns most of it, and he's the one who's building the new house there. 101 Whiting is gonna be screening in their dumpsters finally. They're also getting them emptied regularly now, after they found out that the town doesn't do that for them.
The stuff up on North Main Street where they, the gas station where they fenced in the.
Yeah, they fenced in their dumpsters and removed their porta
Nice.
potty.
Yeah,
as
well,
well.
nice,
Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Now there's no convenience stop though for a bathroom on the way,
Yep.
but those are the rules. Oh, so this one's interesting of note. 398, 420 Main Street. Pete, we asked you not too long ago about that from the old lobster house that was back there, that area, the parking lot back there.
Yeah, yes.
There's also I call the sidewalk in parentheses, a 20-foot wide, give or take, sidewalk
dumpster
behind
sitting
those
on it.
buildings. With multiple dumpsters sitting on it. That sidewalk is a hazard right now. As a matter of fact, someone tripped recently coming out of the back of one of the buildings. There are surveys to prove that it's owned by Impetus, so I started a conversation with them. Nothing official, just email so far, because I've been dealing with Birch Water Management on their other properties. Gonna try to get that sidewalk improved, one, so it's no longer hazardous. And I said, hey, now's the opportunity to have dedicated dumpster pads that are screened. Also, possibly shave down the sidewalk and get some additional parking. As you know, the parking is a big issue back there. So far, that's been relatively well received. I understand that the Impetus folks, now that the town has done all this work over here, said, yeah, we'd like to dress ours up too. I've requested to be part of the planning process, so we'll see what we can actually get out of that. But it's, positive.
Good.
You see my blight lists on there. If you have any specific property questions, I'll entertain them. But other than that, for your reading pleasure, you've got it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Methodist Church, with camper up there and
I know,
motor vehicles and is somebody living in that camper, or it appears
that
to
is
be?
the next question.
As I go by, the windows are open
Yeah,
sometimes,
we
the
did
next
chat
are
about
closed, and
the windows that are at ground level that have to be secured when nobody's at the site. So John did say that, I talked to him about it. The camper I did notice last time I was at the Torp Museum, there looked like there was somebody maybe living there, so we may have to
I saw
follow
the
up on that.
extension cord today,
Oh, you did?
so,
Alright.
Yeah.
that kind
so
of
that's gotta be,
tips you off.
yeah.
Okay. So that'll be followed
it-
up with.
I mean, it's right on Main Street, it looks like hell. It's a big violation, so, okay.
I'll add to the list.
keep my eyes open.
Keep them coming.
I'll keep the cards and letters coming for you. All right, we're done with that now? Approval of minutes, August 26th, 2024.
Make a motion.
On old business, wasn't there a motion to move to public comment for, I remember voting on a motion.
At the last?
Wait a minute, we're gonna get rid of
Yeah.
public comment? I don't know if that's a good idea.
No. For, agenda item 6, old business,
Yeah.
right, we did we voted on something.
Should we move public comment?
No, to move to public comment. I see motions, but like, I don't see a motion for when we talked about the parking lot. We voted on something there.
I wasn't here.
Did we vote to put it before public
Yeah.
meeting? Was that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I thought we did do that, you're right, now that I think about it. I know we talked about it, I just don't actually remember voting
I
on it.
remember raising my hand
Oh, okay,
after I
Yes.
asked questions.
then we did.
Was it legit?
I
Yeah.
believe we'd set for a public hearing date for the 24th, was it? Or
Well,
not?
no, we had to go to the COG first, right, before we were to set up.
Well, I had to go to the COG, but we went
Oh, you mean for
for the parking.
Yeah, that's in the pipeline. Yep, it'll be ready for the 24th.
I'm just saying, there's no documentation that we approved anything.
Yeah, what he's saying, there's nothing there in
Oh.
our
It's not in our
motion.
minutes.
It was
Yeah.
made to hold a public hearing on such and such a date.
Good call.
So can you add that?
Yeah, I wasn't here for that meeting, so I was
Oh,
pulling from
okay.
YouTube. All right, so this was under old business.
Yeah,
And I won't fuss if we don't need it,
PZC 2410.
but do we need to have that in there? The
Yes.
motion,
Motion.
right?
I think so.
Should be a motion.
Yeah, I think you're right. We did vote, so it should be in there.
Thank you. Good catch.
Yeah, because they were gonna be
Make
sent to
sure
the
to put that
COG,
on.
and then we were giving them like a month.
Yep.
Before we
Yep,
schedule a
I just
public
talked to
hearing.
Rob. He said he'll probably have it this week, so.
Okay.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes with
So,
corrections.
on the attendance, you weren't here for that meeting.
Oh, is she on there for present?
Why do you want to see them?
Yeah, it doesn't have you as absent.
Or present?
Nope, Larissa was absent that meeting also.
Try again.
I'm not gonna, third time's the charm, right? And I read it too.
See what happens when you take a night off, Lauren?
That's right.
You make yourself more work.
Yep.
Did anybody second the motion? Not I, okay.
Did I finish
Willie
making
did.
the
I
motion?
second.
I was gonna ask you, did he get?
I made a motion to.
John made
accept
the motion,
minutes
Will
for-
seconded it.
With corrections for
With
the 24th,
a couple corrections.
for the 26th, 2024.
That's it. Enough discussion, or everybody in favor? Unanimous. Opposed?
Wow, that's the most we talked about minutes in a long time.
It is, because Lauren wasn't here.
I wasn't here, that's right.
It's a pack change,
So
just
who do we blame?
reminder.
Who do we blame, Lance?
Yeah, I guess I should,
Okay.
because you gave 'em to me to review, so yeah, I missed it
Any
too.
communications, Lance, or anything?
No communication.
We already did those?
You were?
And then just if folks are around on September 19th,
Oh, yes.
Thursday.
19th?
Yep.
Is there a follow-up?
So, is this gonna be something that we're gonna make like a regular thing, or?
I mean, we do have more things to talk about. I have a feeling housing is gonna dominate this next meeting. 'Cause we
What is
have
gonna?
housing, the
Oh,
topic in
yes.
general.
Right.
So maybe one more after, we'll see. We'll see what we get through.
When we get all done, then we're gonna have regulations we're gonna have to change.
Yeah.
Some of our-
That's what we need to do. We need to, in these meetings, figure out what we want to change, what's the heartache for everybody, so we get something accomplished.
Right. Well, and make it easier for them, because, one of the biggest things was a pervious and impervious pavement.
Right.
So I am working on some of that. I sent a draft today that you can.
I know I
share.
haven't been at it yet,
No,
but I
that's
saw
fine.
you
You
saw
can share
it.
with Kevin Nelligan about one of the questions about the differences between the permits. So I talked about the different permit types. There was some conversation about non-conforming uses, kind of what's being done, and not sure if the regulations really say that or not, so if you take a look at the non-conforming regulations.
That one was interesting. Me, like, specifically, if you're encroaching on your neighbor's property and you put up a one floor, right, non-conforming, because you're encroaching, or not encroaching, but you're not in the proper setback, right? And then you can add another 2 floors, right? Is that more non-conforming?
Well, and so I think what our
Practice speaking.
regulations say is you can't expand the footprint, but you can expand in
Yeah.
height. But what the practice has been is allowing an expansion in footprint as long as you don't exceed the setbacks. I don't know that there's regulations out there that say that. I'm not sure that ours do. So I think what we need to look at is what is it that we are wanting to allow and make sure regulations say what they want. Same with the impervious coverage. Like, we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater on this. I don't know, how old, 18 years ago, Luke was just born. All these LID regulations were coming out, and there was all this talk, because everything was happening was people were putting water and pipes and dumping them into the rivers and the streams, and they weren't being filtered, they weren't being treated. So this whole push to treat water before, not put it in a pipe and dump it into a water body. And that's where, like, the LID regulations came from. And they're good, and they help treat water and rain garden. Now, if we have a problem because we're allowing people impervious coverage, and then if they're not maintaining it, and it's becoming, if it's impervious and it's becoming pervious, there's ways to address that, but to just say, don't wanna do LID anymore, I think that's a huge mistake. But I have some ideas based on that conversation for proposals. Requiring an engineered plan is huge. I forget some of the other things, but I have a list, and I can summarize it and bring it before the commission.
Yeah,
But
I think that was one of our biggest discussions, was the maintenance of it. Because
Yeah.
without maintenance, it's useless.
Without maintenance,
Within a few
useless.
years, it's becomes impervious surface.
Well, and so you talk to the engineers, and they've designed it to a certain spec, and as it, gets filled in and different things, it doesn't function as good.
Right.
And so, but there's a whole school of thought that even it functioning at a fraction is still better
Better than
than
impervious driveway.
putting
Yes.
it in right? And so, what we wanna make sure is that it's designed appropriately, and maybe not, like, what a lot of engineers will do is they'll design it for 110 or 120 times what it's needed to allow for that over time, or provide a maintenance plan and schedule that
Yes.
we can require to be followed. And sometimes there's a combination of both. And then in Torrington, we created this spreadsheet, and once a year, we sent out reminder letters and had people, like, with a checklist, making sure they went out there and monitored it,
Exactly.
especially the commercial properties.
Yeah.
The residential ones get a little bit less wear and tear, but the commercial ones do get,
Well, the big problem is Highland Lake, with,
Yeah.
with the water quality. That's
Yeah.
the problem right now.
yeah. And we've, like, West Hill Lake was the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And then we had, because West Hill Lake was a lot of hard pan soils, and so people were trying to put LID
Yes.
just in there, and it was washing away.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you need to be engineered, you need to do the
Yeah.
perk test, you need to know what's there, to see if it's appropriate or not appropriate, and that's a huge piece of it.
So Peter just talked about some of the problems with water quality at the lake. We had another pop-up cyanobacteria bloom this fall. It was there for about a week.
What causes
So,
that?
That's 2 years in a row now. It's causing it, rain, and then sunlight, warm days. It's been happening like at the end of the season. So it's 2 years in a row now it's happening. So
Is it
it's
the
only a matter of time.
Runoff?
Huh?
Like, is it the runoff from, like, fertilizers and stuff with the rain? And
Oh, it
then-
probably is, but it's the whole lake. It's not isolated in one spot. It's from First Bay to Third Bay. So, but that's 2 years in a row now. So,
What does that open up for? What does that open up for? Like, what's the
cyanobacteria. It's your blue-green algae that you see on ponds that if your dog goes swimming in them, they die. Or it's like what's up at Banham Lake, where you got health warning signs up, how dangerous the water is.
The lake gets treated too, right? It was
Then-
treated
then your
earlier.
property values start dropping.
Wasn't it treated earlier this year with chemicals?
They do what?
For the milfoil,
Yeah.
Yeah, milfoil
invasive
treatment,
weeds.
yeah.
that's what,
What's the suggestion to reduce that from happening?
Nobody knows right now. It could be a steep part of climate change. But we don't know.
anything else? Adjournment?
I noticed, nothing against Troy Lemire, but I noticed he's still on distribution for our meeting minutes and
Hasn't come, I know, I don't know. He is our liaison from the Board of Selectmen, so.
Oh, okay. I was curious, is he
Yeah.
still on? Okay.
The liaison, but we don't get any. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I didn't know. Yeah.
I told George I'd get it done before 9.
Next meeting could be long, just give you a little heads up.
Called
Next
it a
meeting, I'm
believer.
leaving at 9.
What's the next meeting?
I'll give you a heads up, Lance.